Bonus episode of Locked On Jayhawks. Derek Johnson here. Thanks for making Locked On Jayhawks your first listen every day. And we are going to get into the Lance Leipold contract extension in just a moment.
You are Locked On Jayhawks, your daily podcast on the Kansas Jayhawks. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
I'm Derek Johnson. You can also find me 3 to 6 Monday through Friday on Rock Chalk Sports Talk on KLWN in Lawrence. Thanks for making Locked On Jayhawks your first listen every day. And this is a bonus edition of the show, kind of late night action here. The reason why Lance Leipold has just agreed to a contract extension with Kansas football. The report was had by Pete Thamel of ESPN. Kansas and head coach Lance Leipold have agreed to terms on a new contract, which includes an extension through the 2029 season. The new deal is structured to keep Leipold at Kansas for the long term. We've got that tweet from Pete Thamel scrolling across the bottom. You can listen to this anywhere you get your podcasts, or if you're watching, you can see that on our YouTube page. We're going to dive into this in just a second. This episode is brought to you by Upside. Inflation has us all thinking about different ways to cut back, whether it's driving less, dining out less, buying less groceries, going to the grocery store less often. We can all agree there's nothing fun about less. That's why I started using Upside. Upside is an incredible app for anyone who buys gas, groceries, or dines out, which is everyone. With Upside, I don't have to cut back because I get cash back on every purchase. That means more sporting tickets to go to, more movies to attend, more nice dinners I can take my wife out on. To get started, download the free Upside app, use my promo code LOCKED, and get $5 or more cash back on your first purchase of $10 or more. Then claim an offer for whatever you're buying on Upside. Check in at the business, pay as usual with the credit or debit card, and get paid. It's super easy, and in comparison to credit card rewards or loyalty programs, you can earn 3 times more cash back with Upside. Upside users are earning more than $1 million every week. That's probably why they have a 4.8 star rating on the App Store. Download the free Upside app. Use promo code LOCKED to get $5 or more cash back on your first purchase of $10 or more. That's $5 or more cash back on your first purchase of $10 or more using promo code LOCKED. Okay, so obviously the news, the extension through 2029. Obviously we had the 1-year extension earlier in this season, and that did not rule out the fact that he could have been hired by someone else, Lance Leipold, that is. But the fact that this is occurring right now, and we don't have the numbers on this as of yet, at least while I'm kind of recording this. But the fact that this is happening now amidst when all these other schools are about to make their hires, like there's been some scuttlebutt about Nebraska that they're going to be announcing their hire this upcoming Monday. I don't know if that's true or not, but you know, they're obviously looking to make their hire known pretty soon here, right? Wisconsin, I think, just put up like the job opening for the head coaching position, and that they put a deadline on that of like the 25th or the 26th or something like that. So they're going to be making their head coaching decision known soon. That one seems like it's going to be Jim Leonard, the interim head coach, DC. Those are the 2 schools that really stood out for the Lance Leipold stake. I don't know, maybe other openings reached out as well, but those were the 2 that had the tie-ins, because you have Lance Leipold's wife being from Omaha. He spent time as an assistant coach for like over a decade in the Omaha area, which is obviously nearby Nebraska, including being an assistant at Nebraska. And then obviously the Wisconsin one, spent so much time at Wisconsin Whitewater, got his startup as a GA at Wisconsin. But the big one is Nebraska. And the fact that this is coming right now basically tells you that, you know, he is not going to be hired somewhere else. You feel very confident in saying that, because why, if you were a head coach that was going to take a job somewhere else, would you sign an extension and then a week later go somewhere else, right? That doesn't happen. And honestly, should this be that much of a surprise? Probably not. Like, all along the way, Lance Leipold left breadcrumbs that said, hey, I'm not leaving. Whether it was appearing on like different podcasts or shows and like hinting at it, or saying that, you know, we want to build something long-term here, like different quotes that he gave along the way. And I'm just kind of paraphrasing on stuff that he said there. Told you that he was going to be in it for the long haul. But the reason that, and I think it was fair to still have hesitation, like, you know, you've seen other coaches in college football say things and then all of a sudden they're gone. Like, remember Lincoln Riley just last year? Like, no, I haven't had contact with USC. And later, he's the USC head coach because he didn't technically have contact, but some of the back channels did. Like, his agent might have talked to the US. So it was just technicality. So that's why, you're always careful until you actually know it's going to happen. But how about this? This comes from Michael Swain of Fog.net and 24/7 Sports. We had Michael on the show about a week or two ago. Lance Leipold has agreed to a new contract with Kansas. I can confirm Pete Thamel's report. It's through the 2029 season. I've heard Leipold said no to Nebraska late last week, and his representatives ironed out the final aspects of the extension with KU. It comes with major commitments to infrastructure. It will also give Leipold a handsome raise. So, lot to unpack there. The first part, and maybe the most notable, he said no to Nebraska. Think about that. Guys, Kansas has a really freaking good football coach. He has turned around this program. He might win Big 12 Coach of the Year, National Coach of the Year. I don't know. He might not. The fact that, Sonny Dykes at TCU is undefeated makes it kind of hard. But in a lot of normal years, he would win Big 12 Coach of the Year at the very least. You have this guy in tow. He has turned around your program. He has gotten you to a bowl game. And he turned down a school that he had ties to that you can say what you want about Nebraska not being good now, and they're not. That is, for a lot of people, a dream job. I mean, that's a school that sells out each and every game. They have all sorts of money to pay for NIL stuff, including what's going to be coming in as part of their Big Ten TV contract. I mean, it is unbelievable. He said no to Nebraska to stay at Kansas. That is loyalty. That is absolute loyalty. And I think, next year, pack the booth, man. Pack the booth, because he stuck around for you. You got to stick around for him. Like, that's just kind of how this works. I'll be interested to see who Nebraska hires now. I know, Chris Kleiman was certainly a name that got brought up a lot. Like, could you imagine that? Could you imagine this? Okay, I'm just going to draw this up. This is the perfect Saturday night, Sunday, Monday, whatever you want to talk about. And to be clear, I'll have my KU K-State preview coming on Thursday's show. We're going to do that on Wednesday. It'll come out on Thursday, so you can listen to it or watch it on Thursday or Friday. I think it's going to be tough sledding for Kansas against Kansas State after the way they've struggled in run defense, and Kansas State has a really, really good defense. But hypothetically, could you imagine a weekend where Kansas beats Kansas State, after Lance Leipold announced that he's staying, and Chris Kleiman takes the Nebraska job? Like, that would be the greatest weekend in Kansas football history since the Orange Bowl win. Honestly, like, seriously, I mean, you're talking about 15 years, 14 years of the best weekend. So we'll see. But anyway, I just thought that was interesting. But again, he said no to Nebraska. I want to unpack this a little bit more in just a second here. But first, this episode of Locked On Jayhawks is brought to you by BetOnline. BetOnline.net is your number one source for sports betting information, stats, news, and analysis. Get the latest odds and trends for every professional and amateur league out there, from football to basketball to soccer, esports. You got it all at BetOnline.net. And if you love sports podcasts, you can find those at BetOnline as well. We're always the fastest and easiest way for you to get your betting fix with BetOnline. You can head to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more. You can bet on that Kansas State game. Last I saw, it was a 12-point spread, and maybe this will be a situation where Kansas now, it's I guess it's like Wolf of Wall Street. Like, I'm not bleeping and leaving, right? And maybe the team is extra fired up just to kind of rally around the coach and like, hey, we all want to be here. I don't know. You can bet on that or plenty other things. Battle for Atlantis going on, World Cup, Chiefs on Sunday against the Rams. Head to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more. Bet online, where the game starts. All right, back to the info here. Once again, Lance Leipold signing a deal. Now, some other pieces of this. So I guess why now? That would obviously be important with the other coaching hires occurring. The fact that he said no to Nebraska to stay with Kansas. Here's the big thing that Nebraska could offer him. It was that NIL money. The fact that they make so much money in general, they sell out their stadium, which is a giant stadium and everything, and then they're going to be making all this money off Big Ten media rights. One, you do wonder if in these conversations, going back to the realignment stuff, and would the Big Ten ever invite Kansas? Well, if Travis Goff knows something internally that in a few years that is a possibility, then maybe you say, hey, look, we're going to be in that conference too, and we're going to have all that media money in a few years. But I think more than anything, what this was is I'm guessing Travis Goff, and by the way, he deserves a raise as well and a contract extension, probably was able to get enough donor support and booster support to say, hey, we're not only willing to pay you like one of the top coaches, we're not only going to bump your pay and give you an extension, we're willing to play ball and give whatever you need. You want facilities? You want NIL money? You want more players coming here? Check. write the blank check. Let's do it. And think about this. If you are one of those top boosters for KU that, has invested so much in this program, whether it has been facilities or past coaches or just donating in general, are you sitting there as Lance Leipold is having this great season saying, well, this is great, I hope we don't lose him? Are you sitting there and saying, I've spent all this time and money and effort to try to help turn around the Kansas football team, and now we are finally arriving at that destination, I'm just going to let that dissipate? No, you're going to say, I'm going to do everything in my power to keep this going and to make sure we retain that guy in Lance Leipold and make him happy any way we can. And so that's the important part here. How can KU not just like for Lance Leipold, I don't view him as being someone who's like, oh, I have to be making this amount of money, I have to be making more than this guy, or I need this amount of money to do this with my house. No, I think for him, it is more about how can I best build my program. And so for him, I think it is most about just, what resources are you going to provide me? Are you going to improve the stadium and the practice facilities, which obviously Kansas did make the announcement that they are going to be working on the stadium? Are you going to give me a nice pool of NIL money for the current guys so that we don't have to worry about them transferring, or for guys to come in so that we can better recruit people? Those are as important as anything. And the fact that Kansas made this agreement, we haven't seen the details or whatnot, but that would signal that Kansas is ready to invest in football, just as Lance Leipold has invested in this program. He turned down Nebraska. He's invested. Kansas donors are invested. And you should be invested too, because this is really exciting news. Now we're going to hear about it a bunch on the TV broadcast. So there's a positive thing to talk about that they might bring up on game day or big noon or on the Kansas State broadcast. But really exciting stuff. Kansas will retain their head coach in Lance Leipold, and they fend off Nebraska and Wisconsin along the way. All right, that's going to do it for this bonus episode of Locked On Jayhawks. Coming up on tomorrow, we'll have back to normal stuff. We're going to have our NC State preview. It's going to actually come out at midnight tonight, as opposed to normally it comes out a few hours after that. So it'll come out at midnight if you want to catch up on the NC State preview. And then we will have our NC State recap and the Kansas State football preview in the next episode. It's only going to be, I guess, technically 4-show week. This makes it a 5-show week because of Thanksgiving and whatnot, but exciting news for KU and crossover season, I guess, it's totally here. You can ask anything you want on the YouTube channel. You can also hit me up at D Johnson Radio right now. If you have any questions about anything, we can talk about them in future episodes or whatnot. You can also check this podcast out wherever you get your podcasts or on YouTube. Make sure to subscribe. That'll do it for this bonus episode. See you on tomorrow's episode for our NC State preview with Locked